if you're in the market to get a new roof, a lot of people start looking at solar to do solar with the new roof. So we hear this term a lot where people want a solar roof. And generally that means one of two things. It means that they're looking to have new shingles installed or a new metal roof installed, and then have conventional solar panels installed, similar to what you see regularly when you drive down the road and see solar panels on homes. That's the more conventional solar panel roof. There's also a shingle out now. There's a few companies actually making them that it's a roof shingle that has solar cells built into the roof shingles. It looks really cool. I think it's a neat concept. It's very aesthetically pleasing. With that said, I think there are some pros and cons to both, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first, I want to mention the importance of having solar panels installed with a new roof. The reason it's important to install solar panels when you install a new roof and not put solar panels on an old roof is because the cost to remove the solar panels and reinstall them when it's time to re-roof can be rather expensive. Generally speaking, $6,000 to $15,000 we're seeing for that cost, and that's just for the solar panel removal and reinstall. So if you install solar panels, and solar panel systems aren't cheap, generally speaking, $20,000, $30,000, maybe even a little bit more for a residential system. I'm sure you don't want to spend another 4 years down the road to remove them and reinstall because your shingles are old and are leaking. So really the best time to think about solar panels is when you get a new roof. The solar panels generally have a 25-year warranty, and today's roofs generally have at least a 25-year warranty. So it really makes sense to do the two together at the same time. That way, for the next 25 years, you don't have to worry about that extra cost of removing the solar panels and reinstalling them. Getting back to the two different types of solar roofs, the solar shingle and the traditional, or I should say conventional, solar panel electric system. Let's talk a little bit about what I see as the pros and cons to both. Let's first talk about the more conventional solar panel. They're generally made up of monocrystalline solar cells. That's the more efficient of the two main types of solar cells that we see in the solar panels. And they've been around for a very, very long time. There were solar panels that were launched on satellites in outer space back in the 60s that are still working today. So we know this technology is proven, it lasts, it's safe. The cells are encapsulated in a way that they're protected from high winds, snow, rain, whatever Mother Nature wants to dish out over the next 25 plus years. We know these solar panels can handle it. We don't have to worry about fire hazard, and they're very efficient. Today's solar panels, we're seeing residential panels now over 400 watts each, when the monocrystalline solar panels of 5 years ago were probably less than 300 watts. So the monocrystalline solar cells are very efficient and they're very cost effective. So the cost of a conventional solar electric system might be $20,000 to $30,000, and then you add the roofing cost for an asphalt shingle, whatever that might be, $5,000 to $10,000, versus the new solar shingles with the thin film solar technology. That cost is oftentimes double the cost of having an asphalt shingle with traditional solar panels installed. So almost double the cost. The other issue with the roof shingles, in my opinion, is that they're not as efficient. They don't use monocrystalline solar cells. They generally use thin film solar, and thin film solar generally has about half the efficiency. Maybe it's a little better now, but for the same square footage covering the same roof, you're going to get about half the electricity, half the power from the solar shingles than you would from a conventional solar panel system. So in my book, if I'm looking at cost and efficiency, definitely still the conventional solar panel is the way to go with a new roof. I'd rather spend a little extra money and get more power. You can now, in certain areas like Pennsylvania, you can cover more than 100% of your electricity with solar, and therefore get a check every year for your excess production. It's a really nice income. It has a pretty good return on investment, especially for instance in PPL territory. One of the utility companies we work in, they'll pay you the full price to compare rate for any overages on your solar PV system. So people can install systems that produce 100% over what they need annually in their home for electric usage. I will say the solar shingles look very cool. If money's not an object and you're looking more for the aesthetic, I think the solar shingles are great. I mean, you're still going solar. You're saving money on your electric bill. Again, it costs more to have that aesthetic look. I'm a little bit on the fence as to the technology, how good it is. It hasn't been in the field as long as monocrystalline solar cells or the more conventional, I should say, solar framing with the glass and the aluminum framing that encapsulates the traditional solar cells. Like I said, the new shingles, it's a whole different approach to housing the solar cells. Hopefully they can withstand 25 years of wind, snow, and rain and not have any issues. I personally like to see things proven first for a while before spending that type of money. But I mean, that's something that would be up to you. But it is a really cool looking product, and hopefully it does prove itself. And hopefully we'll start seeing more of that product. The traditional solar panels, I think they've come a long way. They do look more aesthetically pleasing, especially if you have a more rectangular or square roof surface, and the solar panel system is going to be square or rectangular also. I think it could have a nice look, that sleek, low profile, all black solar panels with the black mounting. I think it'd have a really nice look. And I know it's easier to do any maintenance if you have to go out and lift the solar panel. You're not actually lifting up the shingles. You're lifting up the solar panels. The mounting still stays there. You're not interfering with the integrity of the roof system itself. I do like that aspect as well. So that might be another plus for the conventional solar panel. The other thing I would say is, so solar is still relatively new, even though solar panels have been made for decades now. It's only reached the mainstream really in the last, say, 15 years. So it's relatively new technology. What I'll say is we've seen a lot of different technologies with solar come out and then fizzle and go away, either because of cost or because they had technical issues with the product over time. We see some really neat things, like there's these flowers that open up that people put in yards, and they're decorative and they open up, and the petals are solar panels, and that's a really neat concept. I've heard about spray-on solar cells. I've learned to be a little careful with anything new that comes out, because there's a few products that we have used in the past, and we found that while it was a great idea, they just didn't do well over the long term. And so we really like to stick with not only products that have proven themselves, but manufacturers that have proven themselves in the industry. You know, where you're making a large investment for a solar electric system, you want something that's safe, it's going to last, it's not going to be a fire hazard, it's not going to have technical issues, and you're going to get the return on investment, meaning the production of electricity that you were informed of when you spoke to the solar consultant. And so we've learned to stick with certain products, certain manufacturers, and do things a certain way so that we can help ensure that will happen. So jumping on the bandwagon too quickly with new products can be dangerous. We've learned that ourselves. But I will say there's some really neat things on the horizon. I think solar shingles are really cool, and I think they have good potential. Especially if they can get the efficiency up on the shingles, on the solar cells themselves that are in the shingles, and maybe get the cost down a little bit. And then if we can see that they've been out in the field for 20 years plus, that would be a definite benefit. I've talked to people sometimes who have asked about new products, and they say, well, I don't want to do solar panels because maybe they'll become obsolete because something new will come out. And I like to think of solar not as a technology that will become obsolete. I'm a little bit older. I remember when people had very large satellite dishes in their yard back in the day, and those babies were probably 5, 6 foot wide, huge. And that technology became obsolete. DirecTV came out with a very small dish, and that product virtually became useless. I don't think we're going to see that with solar panels. They're relatively simple. They're attached to the roof. Again, the new ones are all black. As long as they're making electricity and it's saving you money, they really can't become obsolete. Yes, they might make a solar panel that is a little more efficient, but that doesn't really take anything away from your investment. You're still going to be making that money. People ask if they should replace their solar panels because they have a 250-watt panel that was installed 15 years ago, and now they see that there's 400-watt panels. And I generally don't think that's necessary unless they want a different aesthetic. If they have the silver frame with the blue glass and they want something that looks nicer and they want more power and they have the money for it, okay, that's fine. But I say if it's saving you a couple $100s a month still, and it looks good to you, then just stay with it.